Imagine soldiers slipping through the dark veins of a city, moving silently beneath streets while artillery erupts above. Could a hidden network of sewers and gas lines really become the deadliest battlefield, letting an army appear out of nowhere and strike without warning? What if the very pipes that carry heat and water for civilians turn into secret tunnels for a ruthless invasion, bypassing frontline defenses, emerging behind enemy positions, and unleashing surprise assaults that could change the war's course? The story begins in Kupiansk, a battered hub in the Kharkiv region, a prized target for the Kremlin. Russian commanders ordered troops into the dank, cramped conduits that snaked beneath the town, hoping the gloom would hide their advance. While the surface fought endlessly, men in damp uniforms crawled, equipped with wheeled benches and even electric scooters, ready to burst into the open at a moment's notice. Their plan was simple: move unseen, seize key points, and force a swift victory. Yet the first signs of trouble appeared as the soldiers emerged near the Osko River, only to find Ukrainian forces already alert to the subterranean threat. Previously we saw Russian squads disappearing into underground tunnels, believing secrecy would guarantee success. But how did the defenders respond when the hidden assault became visible? Did Ukraine simply watch as adversaries slipped through, or did it launch a countermeasure so brutal it turned the very pipes into death traps? Ukrainian intelligence revealed that the pipeline route required 4 days of crawl-through, during which the invaders set up modest food stations and rest spots inside the metal veins. By the time they reached the village of Radkivka, they dispersed into the surrounding forest, aiming for the railway that feeds Kupiansk. Russian officials claimed the operation was proceeding flawlessly, proclaiming that their pipeline troops were steadily pushing Ukrainian defenders out. Yet Kyiv's general staff issued a stark warning: the exits were now under Ukrainian control, the passages flooded or rigged with explosives, and any further Russian attempts would be met with gunfire or drowning. In the aftermath, the battle over the concealed arteries turned into a tense stalemate, with both sides racing to dominate the hidden routes. What will happen when the water-filled tunnels become a battlefield of their own, where the smell of rusted metal mixes with the sour stench of stale air, and soldiers must fight not only the enemy but also suffocation and panic? Will the Russians abandon the pipe gambit, or will they press on, hoping a breakthrough will finally break the deadlock? As the fog of war lifts, the fate of Kupiansk hangs on whether the underground corridors become a conduit for victory or a cemetery for those who dared to crawl beneath the surface. Imagine troops slipping silently through dark, claustrophobic tunnels beneath a city, riding electric scooters along narrow pipes, carrying gear while hiding from enemy eyes. Russia boldly claims this underground maneuver near Kupiansk was flawless. Videos flooded pro-Russian channels showing soldiers navigating these grim corridors. They insist the pipes lead straight into the heart of a city they desperately want to conquer. But is that the full truth? Ukraine firmly disagrees. It insists no direct pipeline route into Kupiansk exists. The underground lifelines Russia used have reportedly fallen back under Ukrainian control. The truth is tangled in shadows, but what's clear is that Russia's soldiers must endure nearly 4 days underground to traverse these labyrinthine networks. The tunnels aren't just a nightmare of darkness, they've been fitted with supply points, allowing Russian troops to rest and eat while inching closer to their target. Once the soldiers emerge, they scatter through the forests surrounding Kupiansk, aiming to strike toward the city's crucial railway lines. Some intelligence sources suggest this sneaky invasion worked, with Russian units pushing into the city's outskirts. Vitaly Ganchev, a pro-Russian official overseeing occupied areas nearby, claims these pipeline raiding groups are steadily forcing Ukraine's defenders back. Yet, Ukraine acknowledges this underground strike but stresses control is far from lost. The Ukrainian General Staff confirmed the attack but remains adamant: the enemy's advance through pipes was a one-time event. They report the main pipeline exits are now held firmly by their forces, blocking any further secret infiltrations. So, did Russia's underground gamble secure them a foothold, or was it a fleeting glimpse of success undercut by fierce resistance? The battle for Kupiansk rages above and below, and the tunnels beneath may be more trap than triumph. What lurks in these shadowy veins of war, and how far will each side go to claim victory? Previously, we learned that Russia claimed pipeline-based assault troops were inside Kupiansk, steadily pushing Ukrainian forces out. Yet Ukraine acknowledged the pipeline attack but insisted the situation remains controlled. Now, the Ukrainian General Staff quickly reassured that while Russia attempted this covert infiltration through pipelines, future attacks of this kind are unlikely. The enemy still tries to gather near Kupiansk's northern outskirts, but the pipeline exit they once used to enter the area is firmly held by Ukrainian defenders. Crucially, this pipeline doesn't provide direct access deep inside the city. How is Ukraine stopping these underground incursions? The General Staff reveals that multiple pipelines run beneath Kupiansk, yet 3 of the 4 main arteries have been deliberately damaged and flooded. The remaining exit point is guarded by Ukrainian forces, blocking any further Russian passage. The message is clear: any Russian soldiers trying to slip through the pipes again will face flooded tunnels or armed resistance at the other end. Ukraine also challenged reports from outside sources suggesting Russian troops fully occupy Kupiansk. Andriy Konashkevich, head of Kupiansk's military administration, firmly states that no Russian soldiers are inside the city itself. Fighting continues on the outskirts, while Ukrainian forces maintain control over all city areas. Make no mistake, though, the situation in Kupiansk is dire. Essential services like water, gas, and electricity have been cut off. Nearly 90% of the city lies in ruins, decimated by relentless shelling. But despite this, Ukraine holds its ground and thwarts attempts to use underground pipelines for infiltration or sabotage. Confusion still shrouds events beneath Kupiansk. Initial tales of Russian troops slipping unseen through the pipes into the city seem overstated. Instead, evidence suggests they only breached the pipelines near the city, then scattered into surrounding forests and fields. With key pipeline routes now flooded or guarded, the underground pathway appears to be a dead end for Russian infiltrators. Could Russia's pipeline gambit mark a desperate gamble that backfired? Or is there a more dangerous surprise lurking beneath Kupiansk, waiting to explode into the open? Stay with us as this shadow war unfolds. The defense around Kupiansk remains fierce, and Ukrainian forces are blocking every attempt to slip through the hidden pipelines. But the truth behind those rumors is murkier than it seems. What if the Russians never actually surfed a secret tunnel into the city? Instead, they blasted holes in the steel arteries, burst into the outskirts, and scattered like startled rats. According to Ukrainian reports, all 4 principal veins of the network are now either flooded or guarded by soldiers waiting with rifles trained on any intruder. In short, the pipeline gamble collapsed under a wall of water and fire. Yet this is only one chapter of a longer, darker saga. Why does the idea of sneaking through sewers sound so tempting, even when the price is a death sentence? The underground route is a nightmare for any combatant. Claustrophobic darkness presses on the skin, the stench of rust and decay claws at the nose, and the air is thin enough to choke. Hours stretch into days, and every step reverberates with the hollow echo of distant artillery. For the Russians, the tunnels are as lethal as any minefield laid above ground. Could the very act of crawling be the deadliest weapon they face? The answer lies deeper still. The Kupiansk episode is not an isolated experiment. When Russian troops tried a similar thrust near Kursk during the 2024-2025 push, the result was a horror show recorded by Igor Garis, a soldier from St. Petersburg. His shaky footage, circulated on a public channel, showed men driven to lunacy by the oppressive gloom. Someone shot himself, another pointed his gun at his own head. A third smashed his skull, and one slammed into a wall until blood splattered, he whispered, his voice trembling. Panic spiraled, and the pipes became tombs where dozens suffocated, took their own lives, or froze in delirium. Was this nightmare a tragic miscalculation, or a deliberate gamble that cost them everything? The next revelation will turn the whole story on its head. The previous report showed a chilling Astra telegram broadcast, exposing an underground nightmare where soldiers lost their minds, some turned guns on themselves, and panic ran like a virus through the dark tunnels. What does a cramped, pitch-black pipe become when it turns from a secret route into a death trap? Garrus described a mass delirium that seized men forced to crawl for days in suffocating darkness. The air tasted of rust and stale sewage. The walls sweated cold condensation onto skin. Dozens suffocated, committed suicide, or died in panic, he said, voice trembling. These pipelines, once thought to be a clever shortcut into Kursk, morphed into tombs. Russian troops were not on a leisurely stroll. They slogged through fetid sewers, their boots slipping on slime, each breath a gamble. Gas lines offered dangerously thin air, every inhalation risked choking. In Kursk the situation spiraled beyond imagination. Hundreds of oxygen-starved soldiers emerged in a surprise assault called Operation Potok. Ukraine had no warning. The Kremlin spun a legend of soldiers from the pipe, yet the truth was far grimmer. Did the surprise ambush justify the horrendous cost? Later scans revealed severe chemical burns inside lungs, swollen by methane fumes that flooded the narrow conduit. Soldiers emerged with clogged, inflamed chests, their ribs groaning under the strain of each gasp. The price of this subterranean gamble was staggering. While the attack caught enemies off guard, the Russian forces paid with lives and ruined health. And as the last men clambered out, a hollow echo lingered in the tunnels. What hidden dangers still lurk in the forgotten veins beneath the battlefield? Just moments ago, we uncovered how Russia's daring pipeline operation came at a terrible human cost. Soldiers choking on toxic fumes, lungs ravaged by methane, trapped in claustrophobic tunnels where panic and despair ruled supreme. The question now is, why would anyone willingly send troops into such a deadly trap? The answer lies in a brutal calculation. Many of these soldiers might have never known that their mission was a near-suicide plunge orchestrated from the very top. Ukrainian forces claim they detected, blocked, and utterly dismantled the Russian units moving through the pipelines under Kursk. Their words paint a grim picture, a bloodbath that shattered any illusions of a swift victory for Putin's forces. The numbers tell a story just as conflicting as the battle itself. Russian military chief Valery Gerasimov boasted that hundreds of soldiers, some say 600, emerged from the pipelines ready to strike. Ukraine sets the figure much lower, around 100. The truth may forever remain buried beneath the earth, like the bodies of those lost in the darkness of the pipes. What becomes crystal clear is just how high the stakes are, and how ruthless the gamble. Russia apparently embraces these deadly attacks, despite the devastating toll. According to a spokesperson for Ukraine's Southern Defense Division, Serhiy Brachik, these pipe assaults have become a grim norm in Russia's battle strategy. They accept the casualties because they crave the advantage of surprise. But why risk so much for what often seems like failure? After all, these pipeline assaults frequently falter or are quickly repelled, raising doubts about their effectiveness. If Kursk's tragedy serves as any measure, these underground missions bleed Russia's forces dry. So, why persist with the tunnels? What drives Russia to dive into these suffocating, perilous corridors beneath Ukraine? The answer might reveal a desperate strategy shaped by the hell of war itself. Could it be that the underground passages offer fleeting moments of stealth and hope? Or are they just another dark avenue into a conflict where human lives are mere expendable pawns? Stay with me as we dive deeper into this shadowy warfare, where every breath could be a soldier's last and every step might lead to victory, or oblivion. Previously, we explored the desperate and risky attempts by Russian forces to infiltrate Ukrainian cities through subterranean pipelines. Despite the horrors endured and heavy losses, Russia persists with this unconventional strategy. But why cling to such a grim approach when the cost has been so devastating? The answer lies deep in the echoes of history. Warfare has long been waged beneath the surface. Over 100 years ago, during World War I, tunnel warfare unleashed devastating surprise attacks. Soldiers darted through intricate underground networks, silently bypassing enemy lines to place explosives and wreak havoc. The Allied forces crafted vast tunnel systems to outmaneuver German trenches, triggering blasts that claimed thousands of lives. This eerie parallel suggests that beneath the mud and trenches of the past, a grim legacy endures. Decades later, the Vietnam War reinvented this subterranean battleground with the infamous tunnel rats. American soldiers crawled into claustrophobic tunnels barely big enough to breathe, confronting elusive Viet Cong fighters who thrived underground. These tunnels were more than passageways, they were lifelines for intelligence, supplies, and guerrilla tactics. The U.S. even built a forward base perched strategically over the tunnel systems, underscoring the relentless challenge of fighting beneath the Earth's surface. So, Russia's recent use of pipelines beneath Ukraine is not some reckless gamble but a thread woven through military history itself. These pipelines offer stealth and unexpected routes to ambush enemies, if only the horrors of suffocation, panic, and brutal conditions can be overcome. The question remains, will Russia's underground gambit ultimately deliver victory or become another dark chapter of soldiers lost to the shadows? The battle lines may bend beneath the ground, but the costs above surface with brutal clarity. The use of underground tactics in warfare is not new. For decades, armies have been digging, crawling, and navigating through tight passages to avoid detection. But there's a twist to this story. Russia is currently employing a risky strategy by utilizing old pipeline networks beneath Ukraine. While this approach has had its hiccups, there's a success story buried in the rubble of Avdiivka. When Russian forces laid siege to Avdiivka, they discovered an abandoned extensive pipeline system. Initially, their attempts to use these tunnels were thwarted when Ukrainian forces noticed and bombarded them. But on the second try, sheer determination paid off. Russian troops maneuvered through 2 kilometers of pipeline and emerged in Avdiivka. From there, they seized strategic positions, which played a crucial role in their eventual conquest of the town. This episode fueled hope within Russian ranks, convincing them that the pipeline tactic could yield results again. But is this confidence misplaced? Despite the initial success, the ongoing military incursions through pipelines are fraught with danger. The underground passageways are often cramped, just 2 feet by 3 feet, forcing soldiers to crawl for extended periods. The question arises, is the precarious nature of these subterranean routes worth the risk? How many more Russian lives will be sacrificed in this gamble? While the allure of stealth might tempt Russia, the perilous conditions underground pose as formidable an enemy as Ukraine's forces above ground. Additionally, many pipelines are remnants of the Soviet era. And it's highly probable that Russian commanders possess maps that detail these long-forgotten tunnels. This knowledge gives them an advantage. They are not merely crawling blindly into enemy territory. But the brutality of attrition warfare looms large. With over 1.1 million Russian soldiers lost due to fierce Ukrainian resistance and the relentless drone strikes, the mortality rate is staggering. The risk of being funneled through pipelines in desperate, claustrophobic conditions might be a gateway to victory, or it could lead directly to their demise. As we delve deeper into this narrative, one must ponder, can these old networks really be the lifeline that Russia desires, or will they ultimately become tombs for the desperate and defeated? With each venture into the darkness of these pipelines, what echoes of despair await the soldiers trapped in the chaos? The answers lie deep below the surface, waiting to be uncovered. In the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, a shift in battle tactics has unfolded, with soldiers finding new ways to engage. Instead of charging headlong into combat and suffering heavy losses, they are taking a more clandestine approach, navigating through underground pipelines. These routes offer a way to move stealthily, launching surprise ambushes against Ukrainian forces. But what seems like a clever tactic may be leading Russia to danger. Deep beneath the surface, the city of Kupiansk is a critical focal point for this strategy. It's a strategic target for President Vladimir Putin, who is determined to seize this embattled area. Soldiers crawl through dark, dank tunnels, seeking the element of surprise. But a catastrophic flaw lies in this plan. Ukrainian forces are catching on. Reports have emerged that Ukraine is flooding these pipelines, turning them into grave traps. Just imagine, what if Russian soldiers, thinking they are advancing, find themselves drowning as water fills the tunnels? As tensions rise, the situation becomes increasingly volatile. The pipes, initially intended for strategic movements, are now weaponized against those who dare to use them. Ukraine has set booby traps, layering barbed wire inside the pipelines, rendering the journey nearly fatal. Consider the sheer terror of soldiers who suddenly encounter razor wire in the pitch darkness, their screams echoing in the suffocating silence. Can you envision the chaos as panic spreads among those following behind, unaware of the horror ahead? Meanwhile, reports indicate that drones, previously a formidable force in warfare, have lost their effectiveness against this underground strategy. While drones can scour the skies, they cannot patrol the hidden tunnels that Russia's soldiers are now attempting to exploit. The potential for disaster looms. As Ukrainian defenders strengthen their grip on these networks, the prospect of more Russian troops infiltrating through the pipelines becomes a haunting question. In a striking twist, soldiers have found themselves trapped in their own strategies. The underground pathways are fraught with danger, echoing with past horrors. Something similar occurred during earlier campaigns in Kursk, where soldiers faced chaos and despair within the pipelines. The risks are manifold, the same tunnels that promised stealth now threaten to become tombs. Will history repeat itself, turning hidden routes into death traps for the unwary? As the conflict intensifies, unexpected consequences await both sides. In a stunning twist on warfare, Russia's soldiers have begun exploring unconventional methods to infiltrate Ukrainian territory. Instead of the brutal, frontal assaults we've seen in the past, they've turned their attention underground, navigating a complex maze of sewer and gas pipelines. This risky tactic allows them to traverse the battlefield incognito, making it seem as though a clever ambush is within reach. However, beneath this facade lies a strategic miscalculation. Imagine the chilling environment of those cramped, dark tunnels, where mere inches separate soldiers from the lurking dangers of suffocation and desperation. As they inch their way silently through gas conduits, their hopes rest on outsmarting Ukrainian forces above ground. Yet the very strategy meant to grant them victory may instead lead them to disaster. Reports indicate that, as of early September, the Ukrainians may have already anticipated this maneuver. Now, let's shift our focus to a pivotal point, the city of Kupiansk. It's more than just a battleground, it's a pressure cooker of tension, where Russia seeks any means to claim victory. The underground passageways seem like a stroke of genius, at least on paper. Soldiers, armed with equipment, traverse these pipelines, banking on the element of surprise in their assault. But as the situation unfolds, it becomes clear that this pathway isn't the guarantee Russia envisioned. Ukrainian defenders are on high alert. The Kyiv Independent reports that straining through these pipelines could take soldiers 4 arduous days, and Ukraine is ready. Food and rest stations are set up. But the true danger lies in the flooding, and the artillery that can quickly turn those hidden passages into death traps. With drones and artillery strategically positioned, a single misstep from Russian troops could lead to devastating consequences. Welcome to the modern battlefield, where survival is dictated not by mere bravery but by the cunning maneuvering of both sides. Ukrainians are dismantling the Russian belief that these pipelines are their ticket to victory. As they strike these pipes, targeting key points to ensure that the only floods flowing from them are of water, not soldiers, they're simultaneously setting a precedent for broader warfare strategy. In the midst of this chaos, the narrative shifts once more. Ukrainian officials recognize that this underground layer may not be their only concern. The use of pipelines for invasion tactics could inspire similar strategies elsewhere. Brachuk, a Ukrainian military spokesperson, insists that instead of reacting piecemeal, systematic responses are critical. The clock is ticking as they race to map out these old Soviet structures and prepare for the unexpected. But how can they effectively counteract an enemy equipped with knowledge that spans decades? The answer lies in acute intelligence and collaboration with local experts who truly understand the treacherous pipes beneath their feet. The stakes have never been higher, and as this thrilling saga unfolds, the question looms, will Ukraine manage to regain complete control while Russia's underground strategy crumbles under the weight of unexpected opposition? Every twist and turn in this tale deepens the suspense. As both sides grapple with the implications of their actions, the very trenches intended for concealment may become graveyards in this tug-of-war. Do these pipeline assaults represent a harbinger of victory for one side or a descent into chaos for another? Only time will tell, as the battle for Kupiansk continues to rage on above and below the surface, illuminating the dark corners of warfare that few dare to tread. Earlier, we saw how Ukraine is racing against time to map out ancient Soviet-era pipelines to stay one step ahead of Russia's underground offensives. Now, the question looms, will endless pipeline ambush attempts force Russia to rethink a tactic that's proving more deadly to its own troops than to their foes? Russia's pipeline invasions have been costly gambits, riddled with hidden dangers not just from defenders but from the suffocating, claustrophobic tunnels themselves. But this isn't the only surprising twist on the battlefield. In a world where cutting-edge technology usually dominates warfare, Ukraine stunned observers by shooting down one of Russia's most advanced cruise missiles using something no one expected, a machine gun from World War I, with just $11 worth of ammunition. How could such an improbable feat happen against modern weaponry? Ukraine's ingenious use of outdated yet reliable tools reveals a profound lesson. Sometimes, old-school tactics can upend the most sophisticated plans. This unexpected victory echoes the fierce determination and savvy mindset driving Ukraine's defense. As Russia faces mounting failures in its pipeline missions and costly misfires in the skies, Ukraine's adaptive strategies keep rewriting the rules of engagement. The relentless pressure and creative resilience raise a vital question: will Russia finally admit defeat in these underground gambits, or will it be trapped in its own labyrinth of desperation? The battle passed through muddy, flooded tunnels and crackling frontline radios now echoes with new echoes, old tricks meeting new battles. The war is fiercely evolving, and every move could tip the balance. The story of these tangled pipelines, desperate assaults, and improbable victories is far from over. What happens next could change everything in ways no one sees coming.